All right, hi everybody. We're about to get started here with the first ever Gamefound webinar. So I do want to say a big thank you to everyone joining us both live at the moment and watching this recording. We are going to talk about a lot of different topics today. You might have a lot of questions for me. We are going to do a question and answer session or Q&A after the presentation for those who do want to have their questions answered. Feel free to ask questions in the chat if you want, but we will have a time at the end where you can actually ask those questions. For those watching after the fact, please, you can leave your questions in comments below, and we will address some questions there as well or interact with you there as we get it. But we're going to go ahead and get started. This is 3 stages of crowdfunding success. My name is Ryan. I am one of the key account managers here at Gamefound. My job is to help people get accustomed to the Gamefound system and also just to answer various questions about crowdfunding, give tips and things like that. One thing that we really want to do here at Gamefound is help all projects succeed, regardless of whether or not you use the Gamefound platform or another crowdfunding service. I am joined by a few other Gamefound employees you'll see as presenters. They might pop in to add a little bit more information or to answer some of the questions that are being asked in chat. So they'll pop in and say hello at certain points. But let's go ahead and jump right in. This is the 3 stages of crowdfunding success. Now, there's a few things that we wanted to talk about before we get started, things that we're not going to cover necessarily in this presentation. One, this isn't a sales pitch to use Gamefound. Yes, we are here from Gamefound. A lot of the things that you're seeing as far as screenshots and images and just information is going to come from Gamefound simply because that is where we work. That is the system we're most familiar with. But a lot of what we're talking about here is going to apply to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Game on Tabletop, any other crowdfunding service that you're using. A lot of this is going to be very informative for you. Again, we are going to assume that you already have a great game concept. We're not going to talk a lot about how to come up with the next big thing. You can do that with your focus groups. And again, we're not going to talk about actual like production and pricing and things like that. That is its own topic. That might be something that we actually do an entire webinar on right now or in the future. I'm sorry, as far as like how to get the best price quotes and things like that. And then, we're going to assume that you already kind of have a team in place. We're not going to talk about building your team, though it is great to have a team. Running a crowdfunding campaign can be a lot of work for just one person. We'll talk a little bit about that throughout the presentation, but just something to keep in mind that all of these might be future things that we talk about in other webinars. We are going to share a survey as we do this presentation today in the comments that we'd love for you to fill it out. It's just kind of to gain some information on what you're interested in. What kind of webinars would you like to see in the future? What would you like to learn about? But today we're going to focus just on crowdfunding. So you've already done all that stuff and you're ready to run your first crowdfunding campaign. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will have some of my team jump in here as needed as well. Now, the 3 areas of running a crowdfunding campaign are obviously the preview, which is like a draft page, the crowdfunding campaign itself, and then afterwards, the pledge manager. Running all 3 of these things and using the tips that we talk about here, we can't 100% guarantee success ever. Of course, there's a lot of factors that go into running a good crowdfunding campaign, but if you follow what we're talking about here today, we'd say that you have a much higher chance of success by just following just a few simple tips and seeing some of the illustrations that we have. So let's go right into phase 1. This is the preview page or the landing page. This is what's going to stay up for some amount of time before your campaign actually launches in order to bring people in and build up hype. Now, we might be asking yourself, what is a landing page? This is something that didn't exist for a long time. Gamefound actually integrates landing pages into all of our crowdfunding campaigns. Kickstarter has also started introducing that concept of a landing page as well. So if you're wondering what exactly I'm talking about, let me pull it up here and show you a few examples. So this is what it looks like on Kickstarter when you are seeing projects that are coming up. And you'll see that they all have a notify on launch button. It's great to get your project up here early. So for example, if we're looking at any one of these projects, so let's look at Battle Axe here. You're going to see, once it loads, of course, the option to notify and then how many people are following the project. Now, Gamefound does something very similar where you will see all of the upcoming projects here as well. So anybody that is about to launch a project, you will sit here for some amount of time so that people can see how long it is going to be till launch. Now, we just want to compare and contrast a little bit. You'll still have that follow button and all of the options. For Gamefound, you can kind of build out a page, and we'll talk about why it's important to put specific things on this page. But it's good to know that Gamefound lets you present all that information. Now, Kickstarter, it's great to have the notify. If you are going to use Kickstarter, you probably still want to present all of this information, but you probably will have to do it on your own website. So you can actually have people that are following, you can start advertising your website to them to kind of build up interest in your project and show some of the things that you can't see on the Kickstarter page. Now, this might change over time. Kickstarter might expand this, but if you're looking at Gamefound, we do give you the option to fill it with photographs and text and everything that you normally see on a draft page. So hopefully that makes sense, but let's talk about why you really need to have this. For one, it's going to help you gather your community. The earlier you launch that draft page, the more time you're going to be able to spend advertising it to people, getting people to talk about your page. Everyone that comes to back it is going to see not only that countdown timer to be actually part of that experience of that countdown, but also they're going to see how many board gamers are following. They get to see how big that community is, and it's very easy to share that link to that page, post it on Facebook, tweet it, whatever. People that are really invested in a game are going to want to see that game grow, and they're going to want to see that number of followers grow as well. So you could actually have some grassroots marketing done for you just by building up a strong community pre-launch. You can also use your draft page to gather feedback and adapt to it before you actually launch your page. This is incredibly important because we've seen what happens when the feedback is negative. If you launch your page, launch your campaign, and then gather feedback, it might be too late to implement that. A lot of times this ends up with canceled projects that then have to come back and adapt to that feedback and relaunch at a later date. The more data that you can gain before you ever launch, the less chance that you're going to have to cancel your campaign. And while your page is up, you can do things like polls, for example. You can post updates, ask backers what they're interested in. You can post your draft page for up to a month before you actually launch, and you can use that time to just kind of quiz backers. What are they looking for when it comes to this campaign? The polls are a great way to do that. You can start doing updates right away. Just keep your community engaged from the minute you go live with that draft page. Again, it's going to help you make an informed decision about the launch date. You can see the number of people following your page. Now, you're not going to convert every single follower into a backer. There are definitely best practices that you can employ that are going to increase your chances of that conversion rate, but it's never going to be 100%. So what you really want to do is watch your backer count, or your follower count. And as it becomes higher and higher, our kind of rule of thumb is that we want it to be double what we need to fund. So if you've already done your calculation and you need 600 backers to fund, then you kind of want to wait until maybe you have 1,200 to 1,500 followers, and that's probably a good time to actually launch your page. Now, you don't have to know when to launch when you start your draft page. We can turn that countdown timer on in Gamefound up to a week before that page actually launches. So you'll actually see like that one on the left side there is showing 35 days to launch, where the one on the right has already been counting down for a few days to the point where it has 1 day left. Launching 35 days before your campaign is not a bad idea. You're going to have an entire month to gather data and learn more about your audience, which is really the key thing that you're wanting to do on this page. Some people might say, turn the draft page on, leave it, let it gain information or let it gain followers on its own. But if you're not proactively analyzing that data, you're really missing an opportunity. For example, Google Analytics. This is something that's going to let you look at a lot of information about your followers. And this information can be used to inform decisions you're making. So, for example, if you're starting to look at your followers and you're seeing that a large majority of them are coming from other countries, especially non-English countries, if you have a lot of followers from Japan or Germany, you might want to consider releasing a German version of your game. Even if you weren't considering that before launch, you can see where people are coming from and you can market to them. So in this example, we're seeing a lot of heavy interest from North America and United States and then some in Europe. So you can kind of tailor your marketing by knowing where your audience is. Again, that draft page, of course, all of it is to help build hype. The more hype that you build, the more people you get talking about your project, the better your chances are of funding fast. And yes, funding fast is not end all be all. Some people will cross the goal line on their last 24 hours, and that's fine too. But everybody wants that funded under an hour, report that they can use for marketing. The more hype you have, the more you can advertise this page, the more you can get people coming to your draft, the higher chance that it's going to catch on. You might hit that, BGG hotness, and you might end up actually funding a lot quicker because you actually did that groundwork. Now, again, one question that we're asked a lot by people creating their draft pages: what should you actually show during the draft? You don't want to show everything. You want to leave some things to show during the actual crowdfunding campaign, but you want to show the box. And I do want to talk about this for a second because it sounds so simple, but a lot of projects, people will just plaster the image. They'll show the cover image that they created. That's great, but if you actually show a box, a 3D render, it adds so much more to that. It lets people feel like this is a product now. They can actually reach out, they can grab it, they can interact with it, they can see it on a table. It's so much more engaging to show a box. As simple as that sounds, you obviously want to do, if you can, get reviews, quotes from popular content creators or people that are trusted in the industry. The more of these you can get, the better. Of course, we're not talking about paid reviews and things like that, but especially when it comes to like second editions of games or games that had, previously been on crowdfunding and maybe are being relaunched, and you've gathered some feedback from people, it's really great to show that. And if you can show it in clever ways, we'll see some examples in a second of how you can really do that. Now, you want to show the components of your game. This is what people are coming to back. They want to know that they're going to get their money's worth. And you'll see some great examples that we think really hammered this home. You show everything. Show the punch boards. Show all the little minis. Show every single piece of the game. The more value that they're getting for their money, the better. And also, it just makes your draft page look exciting. If you're showing more than just the box, if you're showing, page after page of components or giant list of everything you're getting in the game, that's really going to engage your audience. Playthrough videos are fantastic, even if they're just small little snippets, even if they're just talking backers through how to play, they're quickly getting an idea of how the game is played. Some people don't like to trust reviews, and that's fine. Some people will just skip through those creator quotes, but if they can actually see the game being played, they can make their own decision. And of course, there's a lot of content creators out there that will do playthroughs. They'll do live plays, pre-recorded playthroughs that you can post into your draft so people can actually watch the game being played, and that will help them decide if it's for them. It makes the game feel more real. If you can actually show that there are people out there playing this game, this isn't just a pipe dream. You've done the work. You've produced a prototype. You've done artwork. You've done graphic design. It just shows there's a much higher chance that this project is actually going to legitimately fulfill if you have some really nice looking prototypes that can be featured in playthroughs. And the last thing is price. Now, you might not want to keep the price up the whole time, but it is good to show the prices early. Remember what I said a minute ago. This is the time that you can make changes. Once your campaign is live, it's too late. So if you show the prices and you start seeing some pushback from backers, people grumbling in the comments or on social media saying they don't think that this game is worth that value, before you launch, you have time to reevaluate. What is it about the price that's driving people away? Or maybe people are getting really excited about the price. They're seeing that this is a great value, and that's only going to help you grow your reach. People are going to get more excited when they think that they're getting like a steal or a bargain. So no matter what the reaction is, it's actually very helpful. It's very helpful to know before you launch if people are going to push back on the price. Now, you'll see here just a few examples of what I was talking about with including quotes and kind of integrating these quotes from backers into the actual pages. And then I want to show some drafts that we think are doing a very good job of building interest and hype. So what you've got here is Castles of Burgundy Special Edition, which is launching on Gamefound in 4 days. You've got the follow option, and you'll see that this one has already drawn in 30,000 backers. Part of that, of course, is the name, but you'll also see as you look through their page, they've done a great job. The first thing you see is every single award that Castle of Burgundy won. You've got quotes from big names like Rado, Tom Vassell right here. And then again, you've got the box right here. You can see all what the new artwork is. They show components. Everything is shown right here. You are immediately engaged, and they are selling you the game right here. Before you even see the price, before this game even goes live, you've already seen how much you're getting for your value. Another great one that's coming in a few days is immunization. Again, look at this immediately. The first thing you see is a ton of components. They have it right here on the top, and the first image you see is this spread. And if you're actually looking at this, it's a lot of punched cardboard, it's a lot of tokens, it's a lot of cards. Most games, when spread out, when you actually look at the sheer amount of components you're getting in a game, it can look really cool when you present it in such a unique way. They did a great job here of presenting that. You're immediately like, oh, look how much you're getting. Look how bright and colorful this game is. This game looks fun. Even though I know nothing about this game, just from this image, I can see that you're just getting a lot for your money, right? And they've gone in on that by kind of showing you how the game is playing right away at the very beginning. The last one is planting evidence. This is one that's coming next month. What they've done really interesting on their draft page is their in the box section is very thematic. They've actually kind of presented it like you're investigating a crime scene, which is what this game is about. This is a very cool way to present your information. They don't have a ton of components. This game is not a big component-heavy game, but they've still managed to present it in such a way that it is very interesting to look through. So by knowing your theme, by knowing your audience, and presenting this information in such a way, you are immediately grabbing attention. If you knew nothing about this game, now I think maybe you're interested. Like, it looks pretty cool just from that one section there. So having all of this information right up front in your draft page and letting that draft page sit for a while can go a long way to building hype for your game. You want people talking about it before you even go onto it. Now, you might be asking still, that's not always enough. How do you boost your number of followers? How do you get more people following your page? One thing that we do on Gamefound that we let you do is have follower gifts. Follower gifts are something that you can actually add in beforehand so that people that come and follow your page are going to get something exclusive. And that's a key word when it comes to running crowdfunding campaigns, that exclusivity, that preys on people's FOMO, that fear of missing out. It gets them excited. Oh, nobody wants to miss out on an exclusive. So they better follow before the launch because they don't want to have a chance to miss out on that. So for example, when we're talking about follower gifts, something like this, a free mini. Now, other backers can still get this mini for $10, but if you are one of the followers, you're getting that mini for free. That's a huge value. You're basically or 10 euros, I'm sorry, but you're basically telling them you're saving 10 euros by following this project because you're probably going to want this mini. You see things like this where they advertise free gifts, and this free gift can be like this, a special version of the game, a special cover, whatever, anything that you could think of, even if it doesn't cost you money. So, for example, Gatefall Monsters did a pretty clever free gift, which is the Invisible Man figure. So that's kind of just a little tongue-in-cheek way to kind of get people engaged. If they're having fun with it, they're going to share it. They're going to have a laugh about it. They're going to post it on social media, and that's already marketing being done for you. You don't have to spend a ton of money on follower gifts. It doesn't have to be something extravagant, although we've seen people even giving mini expansions or extra cards as follower gifts. Things like even digital gifts, like art books and things like that, are good. It's better than having no follower gift at all. And then ultimately, we've even seen people just give a discount. People who followed are going to get $5 off their final pledge. That's enough reason to follow right there. Even if you're not sure if you're going to back it, you don't want to miss out on $5 off. I mean, that's good. That's a good discount. But all of that draft page is done to get you to phase 2, which is crowdfunding. This is where you're actually going to be launching the project, running the project. All of the stress and the magic of crowdfunding is going to happen in this phase. And this phase can feel overwhelming. There's just a lot going on while you're crowdfunding. But we're going to kind of break it down a little bit and show you some good practices that you can use and things you can do while crowdfunding to really engage with your backers. So, what do you need to have on the campaign page? Obviously, that why back now section is so important. You are trying to convince backers that they should come back your project now instead of waiting for retail. Now, there's a lot of great reasons that you can convince them to back now. Things like exclusivity. For example, games that will never go to retail, you can sell them on it. This is your one and only chance to ever get this game, especially for small publishers who market direct to customers. You might not have a giant supply chain. You might not be planning on being in Target or Barnes & Noble or even game stores. This is your one point of contact with them. They need to know that. Get this or don't miss it. But also, there's other reasons that you might want to back now. Exclusive gifts, Kickstarter Gamefound exclusives that you're not going to be able to get in the aftermarket. Different covers, even different deluxe versions of the game, versions that come with storage trays, whatever. If you can give them a value, if you can help convince them why should they come and back now, it's going to go a long way in convincing backers that your project is worth their money. So to sum up, making it happen, for some of you smaller publishers out there, you really do rely on crowdfunding, and there's no question about that. You can sell your dream. Tell them, this is my goal. I want to make a game. I've never made a game before. This is my first game. Have some faith in me. Have some trust in me. Help me make this game happen. Of course, the exclusives, there are companies where people say, well, I don't know if you need to use crowdfunding, whatever. In honest reality, crowdfunding is a huge place for everybody. Really, there's really nobody that can't value from using crowdfunding. But if you can offer exclusives, if you can offer extra boxes, extra minis, extra expansions, things that will never be available in retail, the more of that stuff you can offer, the more value you're going to sell to backers, the more likely they are going to be to back your project. Of course, you can offer the game cheaper. If you're going to say, well, this is a $100 retail game, but you're getting it for $80. That's a huge deal. Even after shipping, that's still cheaper than what they will get if they buy it in retail. You need to make all of this clear. Getting the game faster is kind of tied into that. Yes, okay, you might be able to get it into retail later, but we're not going to retail for a year after. So if you don't back it, you're going to be sitting there for a year or 6 months watching other people unbox their game, post about their game, play their game, while you're sitting there still waiting for yours. And that is, again, that's that FOMO response. People don't want to miss out on getting the game. You know why people should back your game. Make sure that they know why. And you really need to have this to be an integral part of your campaign page. So here's some examples. Why back now? Uprising on the left, no retail. I mean, flat out they tell you, this is your only chance to ever get the game. In the middle, Lords of Ragnarok, it's telling you you're going to get it at a better price, and you're going to get it first. So you're going to get it well before anybody else ever gets it. You're going to be playing it early. And if you see at the top there, be a part of the journey. They're actually kind of engaging you, saying, we want you to be part of this campaign. If you're a backer, you're going to get to help decide what this game is ultimately going to look like. You're going to get some feedback, to be able to leave feedback that will ultimately impact the entire game process. And then, of course, you'll see on the right side there, Last Light, they're showing you, here's all of these deluxe components that you can only get if you back it on. They use Gamefound, so all of these exclusives that will not be available to retail. So If you like upgraded components, and let's be honest, who doesn't love upgraded components? They're basically selling it to you right now, saying, if you don't back now, you're going to regret it because you're going to miss out on all of this exclusive stuff. So we're also going to look at a few pages that I think are doing some of this stuff really well by showing off all of the content of their rewards. Again, we talked about this during the draft page. It's especially important to have this front and center on your crowdfunding page. Make sure everyone knows the value that they're getting. We see a lot of times in crowdfunding campaigns that had to cancel, one of their comments was, we didn't do a good enough job showing you the value. Maybe this game comes with a high price tag, but if you see what that $120 is going to get you, and you see it spread out and broken down and listed with all of the components, everything you're getting, then that $120 suddenly doesn't seem so high. So here you see Lords of Ragnarok has given you a graphic literally showing you all of the minis that you're going to get, all of the cards, the storage solution. It's basically saying, look at this, 99 pounds gets you all of this stuff. And then on the right, we have Sleeping Gods, which uses that list. It just goes line by line, 522 cards, 100 plus tokens. That's selling the game right there. People like to unbox games. They like to have a lot of components, especially for games that are higher priced. But even a game that's on the low end, if you can sell your game at a $20 or $40 MSRP, even if you have a card game, just show all the cards, spread them out, make it look expansive, get people excited about what you're offering them, and there is a much better chance that they're going to get excited about your game. Reviews and quotes, again, are still very important. We're going to look at a couple pages that do that really well. And then presenting your shipping and VAT information up front. Now, this is a scary thing to talk about, especially right now, because VAT laws recently changed. A lot of people are playing catch up on what exactly they need to have when it comes to VAT. And we all know that shipping prices are crazy right now. But the good news is your backers know that. They understand that. But what they want to know is they're not going to get hoodwinked. They need to know up front that their $40 game is not going to come with a $60 shipping cost. So even if the shipping numbers you're telling them are not final, they know that. Everyone knows that. You can present that information, though, in such a way that says it's probably going to be around this number, or even giving them a range. And be honest. If that range is high, just be honest up front. Don't try to downplay how much shipping is going to be and then surprise backers with it later. That's ultimately going to lose you backers on that particular project, and it's going to lose backer faith in you for future projects, because believe me, if you don't watch social media, people do talk about this. Now again, with shipping, you ultimately want to try to stick to those numbers if you can. We all know that the reality is different. You might have another shipping crisis. We might have another hike in shipping prices. Be honest with your backers at all times. And you're going to hear me say that throughout this campaign. Publishers that are not being honest with their backers can suss that out pretty quickly, and they will talk about it. If they feel like they can trust you, though, you could potentially build a backer for life. So that's why you really want to have all of that stuff done early. And then, of course, right around with that honesty, be honest about the risks and challenges. We all know that there's supply chain issues right now. There are fulfillment issues with factories closing. Be honest again. If you're not planning on delivering for a year, express that. Be honest about that and tell backers it might be a year. We might have shipping problems. We might have logistic problems. Be honest with those things on your page. Let everyone know that you're willing to talk about that. If you're willing to talk about your risks and challenges, that's very important.
One technical thing I would like to add to what Ryan says is that remember about a mobile first approach, because like on Gamefound, like 60% of traffic is on mobile. So whenever you create your page, and especially if you're using mostly graphics and text on graphics, always check it on mobile before publishing, so that you know that most of your backers, most of your followers will see your page on mobile. So remember, so that it needs to be legible for them.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good point. And that really factors into how you're presenting this information. We're doing it in this order, why back now, contents, reviews, whatever. But when it ultimately comes to the page, this is not like a suggested order. You want to do it in a way that looks best on your page. And again, we're going to show you some pages here that will highlight what we think are best practices. Now, the last thing you want to put on your page there, the refunds and cancellations, again, be honest. If people know that they can put their faith in you and you're going to offer a refund if they're not satisfied, if you're going to allow them to cancel their pledge if there's an issue, if they know that up front and you can give them a 100% guarantee, there's a much higher chance that they're going to back your project. So while you might think that people just go over that like it's the small print on the terms of service, people do actually pay attention to those risk sections and those refund sections. So there are a few other things that we think are good to have that are not maybe necessarily musts. And again, I'm going to show you how these examples work in real time. But we all know having stretch goals is a great way to bring the community in. They want to keep pushing towards that next stretch goal. Having a lot of add-ons that people can add to their cart, especially when it comes to having all-in pledges that allow everything. Obviously this is going to apply to some of the bigger campaigns. If you're a small publisher who's just doing a card game or one core box, that's great, but you can still think of things you can have as part of stretch goals, maybe unique artwork, maybe different alternate covers, things like that that you can still offer to backers. The about you section is going to reflect back to what I said earlier. You are selling a dream. You are telling your backers, please believe in me. I want to bring this game to you, and here's why. Here's my journey. Here's where I got to where I am today making this game. You're kind of selling yourself a little bit. If people read these sections and they think, oh, this is a great story, I want to help this person make their dreams a reality. And that might seem a little sappy and a little sentimental, but it actually does happen. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of posts from social media on board game groups, especially saying, "Hey, check this guy out. He was working nights at a gas station, working on this game, in the back room, playing it with people that his coworkers, and now he's trying to make it into a real game." Like that's a cool story. People will share that stuff, that information, and it will help you sell your game. And then, yeah, having videos and animations. These aren't necessary. You can just use images, but the more animations you have, the more engaging you can make your page look, the more interesting it's going to be. People are going to want to share that page. They're going to point out, especially really cool animations. People will share it just for the technical aspect. And again, I'll show you one here that's really cool. So let's pull up some crowdfunding campaigns. These are campaigns that did really well on Gamefound. And you're going to see a lot of the same things presented here. So, for example, Uprising, right away, you're not only seeing review scores, comments from uh, content creators, you're seeing the boxes, you're seeing a spread of all of the components. You're getting this right off the bat. And then they did something neat here in actually kind of peppering in comments throughout the whole page. And if you actually click on this, it takes you to their video. Now, you can just have a what reviewers are saying section, but the fact that they've actually kind of spread it out through is very interesting. It kind of keeps reminding you, oh yeah, people have been playing this game. People have been really enjoying this game. And then again, you're going to see all the different stretch goals that they unlocked. Some of them are small. Look, like right here, just 2 new quest cards. That's a stretch goal. It doesn't have to be a big new expansion, 4 new events, 1 new horde figure. You can do that and present that information. And again, Sleeping Gods Distant Skies, they did something very similar. Right away, they're immediately showing you, look at all of the stuff you're going to get if you back this game. And they're presenting it in a really interesting way. And again, the first thing, why back now? Discounted price, collector's edition bonuses, exclusives, things that you're going to have if you backed that no one is going to have. A painted mini, an embossed title, plus surprises. They're really getting you interested right away. And then they have a great section here. So when people are looking at a game like Sleeping Gods and saying, well, yeah, it did really well, but look at what they did to their page. Look at the care that they put into presenting this information. It's it went a very long way to helping people back that page. Last Light did the same thing. You've got some actual great embedded videos showing some of the gameplay mechanics in play. Last Light uses this very interesting system you're seeing here where the board actually rotates. They could have just posted a picture, but actually showing you a video goes a lot farther and saying, oh, well, that's a really, really unique mechanic. Also, what they did that I love is present their shipping information in a very fun looking way. They make a very cool thematic chart here that's very easy to read. You can immediately know what your shipping cost is going to be. Of course, like it says, these are estimated, and everyone knows they're estimated. As long as you're not coming back to like, okay, we said 15 and now it's going to be 40. Okay, that might cause a little bit of blowback. But yeah, backers will understand if your price jumps from $15 to $17 in shipping. But having something like this, having a very easy to read chart where backers are going to know, okay, well, okay, my shipping for the all in is going to be $200. I probably don't want to back that, right? So this is just a really interesting way to present that. And then the last one I wanted to show you is Assault on Doomrock, because they do something very cool. Again, showing you everything you're getting right off the top with great artwork. But their videos, if you look at how to play, they actually have these embedded videos right in here, right in these frames, which looks really, really cool and are very dynamic. So you find yourself kind of watching these, and they do a really cool, just really cool job of integrating them with the pages. Of course, yeah, not everybody is going to be able to do animations like what they've presented here, but if you can, do animations and embed them in, it just goes a long way in making your project page look very professional. And again, instilling a lot more trust. You can see that they've actually, this is a real game. You can see all these components. You can see how to play the game. You can learn about it before you ever even back. All right, so the key question though, how do you ultimately change followers into backers? Like I said at the very beginning of this, you're never going to get a 100% conversion rate. Even the best projects out there do not get a 100% conversion rate, which is why we suggest trying to accrue at least double the amount of followers that you need to become backers. However, there are a few things you can do to get people that are on the fence to come over to backing your project. Setting a goal with respect to the community. That might seem, again, a little bit cheesy, but there's a reason we say this. Backers are smart. Crowdfunding has been around for a long time. They know how to look at a funding goal and sniff out somebody that's being a little fake. If you're having a giant miniatures game that's offering 20 boxes of content and your funding goal is $5,000, they're going to see through that. You need to ask yourself, if I fund at this level, can I actually produce the game? There's nothing worse than overfunding, even like by 200 or 300%, and then telling backers, I'm sorry, I have to cancel the project. I'm not making enough money. Well, if you're at 300% of your goal, 3 times what you needed, it's a tough pill to swallow for backers to say, well, if you needed 3 times the goal, why didn't you set the goal 3 times higher? This is a key of that honesty again. You're not just selling a game here, and maybe you are. Maybe this is just the one game you've ever created and you're never going to do it again, but that is not the case for most of us. Most people launching games are going to be coming back with future games, add-ons, expansions. This is your chance to build that brand loyalty. If people can look at your project and say, well, they were really honest about their goal, when they didn't hit it, they were honest about why. They were honest about how much information or how much past their goal they got. And treat it as an obligation as well. You really don't want to push back on backers and say, that you're canceling the project after funding. And again, this is kind of that what we just talked about with designing the campaign page right. And you want to make sure, again, that it looks good on both mobile and desktop, with the most important information right on top, and then that scroll. Now, Gamefound does, I think, make it a little easier in that we have that table of contents on the left side. People can jump to whatever section they're actually most interested in. But being able to clearly show everything, right? Again, all of this is to build trust. The more professional you can make your page look, the more they're going to trust in you as a company, as a publisher, and as a person. And again, we talked about stretch goals. You saw a few of those examples where they don't have to be expansive. Just here's some extra cards. You can probably fit 5 extra cards in a box. You probably can. And if you make them fun and you let backers have, a say in what those stretch goals are, if you use the update system that we have, you use the polling system that we have to keep these stretch goals engaging, they make the page very dynamic. Now, these stretch goals don't have to be even tied into money. You can tie it into a funding goal. You can also tie it into backer number. You can also tie it into social situations where if we get so many likes, if we get so many shares, if we have so many people posting images onto Facebook or whatever, we'll release the next stretch goal. Or you can just have them timed, where every day you release a new stretch goal, a new card, a new something. That keeps backers coming every single day because they want to see whatever the new thing would be. And then, of course, making updates is important. This is important throughout the entire process. Now, you don't want to spam your backers, but you want to make sure that they know what's going on at all times. What's the plan? What are you going to do with their money? And especially, we'll talk about this with the pledge manager, you want to keep those updates going the entire time. This is your chance to speak directly to your backers, instill them with confidence, show them what you're working on. If you're getting ready to do a new stretch goal, make an update about it. If you're getting ready to end the campaign, definitely make an update about it. And in between your campaign and Pledge Manager, you want to continue updating people with important information. When is the Pledge Manager opening? When is it closing? We'll talk about that in a second. But using updates regularly, having people kind of looking forward to those updates and coming back to check for those updates every day is great. But if they wake up and their email inbox is 20 notifications from you because you did 20 updates in an hour, it's probably going to drive people away and actually have the opposite effect. Now, we're going to talk about your add-ons, your all-ins. You don't have to put all of this on your page from the start. We've actually seen projects do this. One of the most recent examples was Come On with their Marvel United, or their Marvel Zombicide, I'm sorry. They started to release more stretch goals. They started to release more add-ons. And then eventually they actually added a new all-in pledge that had everything. And then all of a sudden backers were reinvigorated. Of course, this is going to apply more to the bigger campaigns that can do a lot of different add-ons and that really need an all-in pledge. But even if your game is just cards, you can still have expansions, maybe a playmat, maybe there's tokens, maybe you can do plastic versions of those tokens instead. Whatever you can do to kind of sell that game, to make that game presentation better, and to let people think they're getting that value for their money again. And if your game takes off, which let's hope it does, maybe you were expecting $1,000 and now you're at 10,000 and you're asking yourself, what do I do with that extra money? You can put that money back into the game with introducing new add-ons, get backers more excited. Small projects sometimes blow up and become much bigger than intended and become huge projects. So it's good to start thinking about add-ons and all-ins. Even if you don't think you're going to have them, you want to be prepared for what happens if you do actually blow through all your stretch goals in the first 48 hours. Now I'm going to talk about something a little controversial, and that's early birds. Now, we do have follower gifts, which people that follow before can have, but there is a lot of time to follow. So I consider that a little different from an early bird. An early bird gift is something that backers can get within maybe the first 24 hours, maybe even sometimes the first 12 or 48, however it's set up. These can come in the form of discounted pledges, special exclusive items that nobody else can get. Now, the pros are it does drive early momentum. If you advertise that you have an early bird gift and that backers that back within the first 24 hours are going to get $20 off, or they're going to get a special mini, or they're going to get a special version of the game, it is going to have a lot of people lined up to back instantly, and you will get a lot of momentum right out of the gate. However, they can do some harm because people that come after that fact, maybe they learned about your game halfway through your campaign, they get there and they are excited, and then the first thing they see is, oh, well, I can't get that exclusive cover. I can't get that exclusive mini. I have to pay $20 more. That can actually drive people away. And also, people that backed just to get the early bird, and they're not even deciding if they're going to get your game or not, right? They hit that back button instantly because they know they can always cancel later. So they wanted to make sure that they got that early bird just in case they do back. But a lot of those backers aren't real. They literally backed to hold their spot. There's a really good chance they might back out before the campaign is done. And then we're kind of featured, faced with that difficult question, what if the campaign doesn't go well? You can follow everything we talked about in this webinar, and your campaign might not take off. Maybe it's because the pricing was wrong. Maybe you weren't listening to backer feedback, but maybe it's things out of your control. Maybe you launched against the biggest game in Kickstarter history. The next Frosthaven launched the same day as your game, and you lost visibility. I mean, that kind of thing does happen. So what do? Canceling is okay. Now, I did mention that you don't want to cancel after you've hit your funding goal because that sells a little bit of dishonesty. But canceling when you haven't hit your goal is actually the most honest thing you can do. But again, you want to use the updates, you want to use communication with the backers and talk them through the process. Let them know why you're canceling. Let them know what pieces of their feedback you're going to implement into the relaunch. And of course, let them know when the relaunch is going to happen. Yeah, we're going to come back in a month. We're going to take your feedback on these pieces and we're going to come back with a better version of the game. Backers will come back. We've seen it time and time again. Canceled projects that relaunch, if done well, will then have a much better chance to succeed. People really appreciate honesty. Backers very much so, especially right now when there's a lot of mistrust. The more honest you can be with why you canceled, the better it's going to be for your backers. You can use the time in between your cancellation and the relaunch to gather a ton of feedback. You can continue to poll backers. You can continue to ask information. You can continue to look at your Google Analytics. Why did this campaign not do as well as you hoped? You followed all the steps, it didn't work. However, ask your audience. They will tell you why. Backers will be very quick to tell you why they didn't back because they want their voice to be heard. So use that time. And again, if that's what happens, if you don't have the launch day that you want, if you don't have the first week that you're looking for, it's okay. Don't lose hope. Don't let it get to you. And definitely don't blame backers. We've seen that. How if only you had backed, we would have funded. Don't do that because there's a reason they're not backing. Come to the backers where they are and find out why. All right, so after crowdfunding is done, you're going to probably have a pledge manager. Pledge manager is what actually manages the pledges, lets people upgrade their add-ons or gain add-ons, upgrade their pledges, put in their information, pay for shipping, all of that. Some people consider this the boring part, but this is still a chance to make a great impression on backers. So let's talk about the basics of what a pledge manager does. When do you want to start the pledge manager? You'll see people say all kinds of answers here. We actually say a month. We suggest waiting a month from the time that your campaign ends to the day that you launch your pledge manager. You can do a lot in that month. For one, you're giving that campaign a chance to spread a little bit farther. People are going to start to realize that they missed out on your campaign. But you want to give them time for people to be talking about it, for people to realize they missed out, and also for you to just make sure you have everything set. Make sure that you have the correct shipping prices, that all of your production stuff is on time, that you've developed kind of a timeline. Take that month, really work on the page and the pledge manager before you launch it. But people have said, well, what if we want to open up just for late pledges? And we've seen this happen before, even on Gamefound. But what I can tell you, you might get a little bit of extra money from late pledges coming early, but those people that are late pledging will probably late pledge even if it's a month wait. What you're doing by opening it up early is actually causing confusion. If you say we're opening up for late pledges, but not for backers, backers can come in a month. People that missed the page can come now. You'll have backers coming in, trying to check out, realizing they can't check out. It can be kind of confusing for people. So we don't generally recommend that at all. And then the question is, should you keep the price the same for late backers or should you make it higher? You see campaigns do this both ways. Now, what we like to say is keep the price. And here's why I'll say that. You might be losing out on a little bit of money at the time because your price is lower. You're not getting that extra $5 or $10. But if you offer late backers the same price that your actual crowdfunding backers got, you're not just getting backers, you're getting fans. You're getting loyalty there. People are more likely to back your future projects if you give them the same chances.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing about allowing for late pledges only. One more effect it might have. Actually, you might learn your backers that there's actually no point in backing your campaign, because right away you're going to open Pledge Manager and allow late pledges. So this might have an effect in the future for your next campaigns. So have that in mind, that allowing late pledges right away after the campaign might have effect on the future campaigns.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All of that ties back into that idea of you want backers to come back and back you later, right? You want to make sure that everything you're doing is above board, that you're being honest, that you're building up brand loyalty or publisher loyalty while you're doing your page. The last thing is, should you add more items? People will say that. They'll see the dollar signs again. Well, and we can start selling them more things. Okay. Well, yes, you can. And in some ways, some situations that can actually be beneficial, especially if you use that month in between and you see backers were asking, well, with all of this stuff, we really want the option to get a big box or a storage solution, or we want a bag for our tokens. If you really see people clamoring for a specific item, you can offer it into the pledge manager. But I wouldn't suggest doing that unless you're seeing backers asking for it. If they come onto the pledge manager and all of a sudden they're seeing all of these add-ons that they didn't know they were going to have to pay for, they might actually shy away from your page, or shy away from adding those on, because they thought they were spending $100. And now, if they want to get everything, they're spending an extra 60 to 100. It could actually lead people to canceling altogether. So that is a very fine line to walk when it comes to adding more items in the pledge manager. And then, what do you do when people don't come to the PM? Let me be honest with you, they all won't. That is just a fact that we've seen in every crowdfunding campaign from Kickstarter to Gamefound. Sometimes people just don't finish their pledge manager. But that isn't a reason for you not to advertise to them still, or communicate with them still, or try to get them to come in and do the PM. You want to be very vocal about if you're closing the PM when you're closing it. You want to try to encourage people. I know on Gamefound, we'll send out emails to people at certain periods saying, hey, you haven't done your pledge manager yet, come in and do your pledge manager. And we all know, if you've ever run a campaign before, it doesn't matter how much you advertise that the PM is ending, the day after it ends, you're going to get a flood of emails from people saying that they missed the PM. And that's fine. Expect that. Have a plan in place to deal with people that miss the pledge manager. Are you going to allow them to do it in the back end? Are you going to refund their money? Are you going to tell them, it's too late, you're out of luck? I don't recommend that. That's a bad thing to say. We've actually seen publishers do that before, and it's led to sour experiences, and those publishers have often gotten called out for that behavior. So have a plan. If it's way too late and you've already done your production, you've already shipped everything, then just give them offer a refund. And you want to kind of look and see however many people didn't pledge, you can see who's still waiting. And for example, if you've got 10 people that didn't pledge or didn't fill their PM, or you've got 20 people or 100 people, kind of expect that at some point they might be asking for a refund. Again, this goes back to that refund policy. If you were clear about it and you were saying, hey, if you missed the PM, sorry, no refunds, or you get a 50% refund, which we've seen before, 60% refund, whatever. As long as you're honest early and you can point back to that refund policy and say, sorry, if you missed the PM, no refund for you. We're still going to send you the game, and that's just how you're going to get it. Having that plan is what matters. And you'll see here some of these examples of pledge managers that blasted that out. Pledge manager closing on November 30th. Pledge manager closing on the 26th of April. You can blast this out as much as you want. Yeah, people are still going to miss it. But you can still have said, well, we did everything we can. If somebody complains, you can say, look at update 36, where it says last 24 hours in giant bold text. Again, if you can convince your backers that you're being honest, that's going to go a long way. And then the question is when to close the PM. Well, okay. This is going to matter, depend a lot on your size as a publisher. Is this a one and done print run for you, where you're only printing 1,000 copies, 2,000 copies, and never printing it again? If that's the case, you'll want to close the PM at some point. You want to tell people, well, at this point, we're not giving you the chance to buy this game anymore. But if you plan on supporting the game, doing multiple print runs if you need to, keeping it warehoused, always keeping some on hand, then effectively you don't have to close the PM. You could just leave it open. Let people keep coming in and late backing, or getting that PM or getting that pledge manager filled out whenever they want. So that's a question you're going to have to really look at your own logistics before you answer that. Now, one thing you want to do if you're going to launch a reprint or an expansion that allows you to get the base content, you probably want to close the pledge manager down for the original and redirect them to this expansion. So if they wanted to still get the base game for the original game, you don't want them late pledging. You want them coming to the new crowdfunding page and really being part of that crowdfunding experience instead. So again, the PM page, it's not a lot different than your actual crowdfunding page. You can take out a lot of the fluff. For Gamefound, we actually let you build a separate page for the pledge manager. It looks a little bit different. It's a simpler page. You're not selling as heavily here. Your goal is for backers to have the easiest possible experience checking out. So you want to make that the easiest part. Let them upgrade their pledge, show them why they should upgrade, show them the add-ons they should be buying, but you're not giving them the full-on presentation. But again, and I said this earlier, continue to update. Update all the way through the pledge management stage. The more updates you can do, every week or every month or however often, even if your update is to say we have no update, it's very important to present that information to backers because they are going to be waiting to hear. Pardon. Now, with the world being in the state that it's in, it's actually pretty normal right now for games to be delayed. And we've actually gotten to see the response that happens when publishers are silent about their delays versus when publishers are upfront and honest and release updates about their delays. Backer response is very different. In one hand, you have backers clamoring for a refund, going to their credit card companies to cancel the charges. And then the other, have backers saying, yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry all this happened, but thanks for updating us. We'll just wait and get the game when it comes out. So continuing to update even when it's bad news that you don't want to send, you should do it because this affects your future. If you're late, it could kill your company if you just ignore backers. They will never back you again. They will never follow you again. You have to work really hard to rebuild that trust. But if you can regularly update people, then you've never lost that trust in the first place. Now, before we get to the Q&A part at the end here, and I know you guys have been having some questions during the presentation, I want to touch on marketing just briefly, because everything that we talked about here is all great best practices, but marketing can help a little bit. You don't want to count on just having organic reach. You can do everything right and never get on the BGG hotness, never get shared to a Facebook page. I mean, it can happen. Don't count on it. It's great when it does, and when it does, you want to capitalize on that, but just don't count on it. Using Facebook marketing is much better. It's much more efficient. And if you don't know how to use Facebook marketing, then find somebody that does. There are so many different professional industry entities that will run your marketing for you. Some of them don't even charge unless they made you money. Some, like Gamefound, for example, it's money based on how much they made for you. So look at your options. If you don't have a marketing budget, it might be okay if your budget's not big because they will spend a little bit on your behalf or put this together in order to make some money for both of you. So it's important to look at all of the different marketing options and find the one that works best for you. You want to spend money as long as you're getting a return on that investment. You don't want to think of it as spending money. You're actually investing that money. If your ROI, you're returning on your investment, for every $1 marketing spend, if you're getting $2 back, you're doubling your money. In which case, you want to put as much money into that as you possibly can because you're literally doubling it. It's a huge deal. Now, I'm not going to say that you're going to get that kind of ROI, but you want to be looking at it and you want to be watching it and helping you determine how much to spend on that. Partnering up with people, with influencers is great. Getting them to talk about your game, to live stream your game, getting them excited about your game, to take pictures of your game. They can be great partners for you. You just want to make sure that everything you're doing with them is above board. You want to make sure if they're being paid, that that's being talked about. And, if they're not, that's great. If you're just sending them the game and they're loving it and they're not, no money's exchanging hands, make sure people know that too. It's just good to have complete transparency both ways there. And then giveaways are great. There are so many ways you can do giveaways, either through partnering with influencers or by going to Facebook. There are so many different Facebook groups centered around board games. I want to point out too, if you're not aware of Board Game Spotlight and Board Game Revolution. These are two giant Facebook pages. I mean, Board Game Revolution is huge. You don't want to forget about them when you're doing your advertising or marketing. And they host giveaways a lot that really get people interested in the game. So we'll talk more about marketing. Like I said, we're going to have that survey that goes out to everyone. If people are more interested in marketing webinars, we'll actually do an entire webinar on how to market your game, which if you take a lot of the skills and best practices we talked about here today in this presentation and combine it with the marketing, then you will be in pretty good shape. So just want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who's been part of this webinar, who listened to me go on and on about all of these best practices. It's been great having you.